For tonight's Big Picture Rumble, I'm joined by Jordan Sekalo, attorney and talk show host, Ryan Clayton, regional spokesperson for USUncut.org. Great to see you again, Ryan. And Seton Motley, president of LessGovernment.org. Great to see you again, too, Seton. And,
Thank you, Tom.
Ryan, welcome to our little
whatever you pranksters.
Yeah.
You want to do that? Yeah.
There you go. A bombing campaign continues in Libya as rebel forces are withering under the firepower of Gaddafi's military. Yesterday, Congressman Dennis Kucinich gave a scathing speech against what was going on. Take a look.
This administration's new war doctrine will not lead to peace, but to more war, and it will stretch even thinner our military.
Meanwhile, Tea Party darling Marco Rubio donned his war hawk clothes and sent a letter to Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid saying this: the resolution states that removing Muammar Gaddafi from power is in our national interest and therefore authorizes the president to accomplish this goal. At the end of the day, the fact remains that our nation is not like other countries. The United States is an exceptional country with exceptional powers, but that power comes with unique moral obligations and responsibilities. So, our question: have the Tea Party and the president finally found common ground in this war?
Maybe a little bit. I will say I was someone who supported intervention in Libya earlier when the rebels were actually on the gates of Tripoli and not. And I think the president waited too late. I think legally speaking, that Dennis Kucinich brings up a lot of these points. The truth is this has not been settled ever by the United States Supreme Court. There's no precedent. All presidents in the past have said that they've got a power to do this, Democrat, Republican. Congress will sometimes pitch a little fit about not being informed or whether they're
when
informed enough.
They say it, though, they invoke the War Powers Act, but the War Powers Act explicitly says we have to be under threat.
But
the
Supreme Court is not even tested. The Supreme Court's not even tested, nor have any presidents ever said that applies to them.
Tested,
so, look, the real story here is that this was a really hard decision. You know, and I think in a lot of ways Libya is the reversal of what we achieved in Egypt. You know, if you want your freedom, go take it yourself. Stand on your own two legs and rise up. And in Libya, we had to come in and we had to do that. Now, I think the reason Obama did that is he made the decision that any moral person is going to make. If 500,000 people are going to be slaughtered by a violent dictator, you know, are you going to be able to sleep at night if you make the decision not to step in?
No, I think you step in, though, when you've got the dictator on the ropes, not when he's got the rebels on the ropes who we know aren't trained, and now we're seeing this flicker of al-Qaeda, flicker of Hezbollah. That's what starts troubling the American people, thinking, why do I know as much as the administration about the opposition on the ground?
We're 2 for 3 on interventionists. Seton, your thoughts on this?
There's absolutely no U.S. interest in this at all. Yeah. We have no business being there.
I think this is the first time ever in our lives.
No, we've agreed.
I've agreed with you.
No, we've agreed. No, this is a full. You know, people like Dennis Kucinich was right back in Iraq and Afghanistan, saying we didn't have an exit strategy.
Did you just say Dennis Kucinich was
We
right?
didn't have.
I just want to get that on the record. Was that,
I told him in the green room earlier in the week. We didn't have we didn't have an exit strategy in Iraq and Afghanistan. We didn't have an entrance strategy in Libya. We had no idea what we were getting into when we went into it.
So if 500,000 people were going to end up dead the next day, if that was a possible
does it affect
scenario,
our national
would
interest?
you have made that decision?
No,
yes.
I don't think it's just about
I would have stayed home.
You would have made the decision to stay home
Absolutely.
and let 500,000
No, you don't
people
do that.
die.
Absolutely.
You have to keep the United States. If you want to be the United States, the world power that we are, you've got to intervene sometimes. That's the time to intervene.
And say, my take on this is that I am hoping for the best. I'm hoping that this can work out the way that George Bush said Iraq was going to work out. Will be, you know, but I'm fearing the worst. I'm very concerned. I think that we've stepped into something that's very sticky.
I agree with you. I'd actually say one thing he said in the green room, though, was that you know, the ultimate evil is a government official murdering his own population.
Oh, it is, but it's happening all over the world. We got to move on to another topic here. New unemployment numbers came out today. Take a look. The economy added 216,000 jobs last month, and the unemployment rate dropped to 8.8%. Considering the Republicans have spent their time in Congress focusing on legislation that didn't create a single job, arguably took some away, like defunding NPR and Planned Parenthood, aren't the strong unemployment numbers over the last few months proof that President Obama's economic policies are working and the Republicans are wrong? Ryan?
I think it's great news. You know, America's getting back to work, and the best thing to bring down deficits in this country is to put Americans back to work and make sure they're getting a good paycheck every day. You know, there's a really reckless, extreme group that has taken over. First, they took over the Republican Party, and now they've taken over the House and Congress, and they're dictating this agenda that has nothing to do with jobs. It's purely destructive, and they're not going to create any jobs. And in fact, the cuts that they're talking about would actually cut 1 million jobs throughout America.
That's a fraudulent number. That is an utterly fraudulent number.
And it would reduce It would reduce our economic growth by half. Is that what you want to do?
Let me introduce you to reality. We're talking about $50 billion in cuts when we owe we're short $1.65 trillion this year. These cuts are infinitesimal to what we need to do.
You didn't say jobs once.
Excuse me.
The
government shrinks, private sector expands. It happens every time. The reason the unemployment numbers are going down, and by the way, they're not. The underemployment's 19 point whatever. The reason
we're close to 20% in real unemployment.
Right. The reason the employment numbers are getting slightly better as we bounce along the bottom is because we're getting further and further away from the $1 trillion stimulus. We're getting further and further away from a Democrat-controlled House, Senate, and Obama administration.
You still haven't said jobs once. You might want to put that in the last part.
But here's
excuse me. Are you
look at
taxes?
Just look
what are you,
at
a
the budget
taxonomist?
battle itself, which I know we're getting to. What do you expect Republicans? They can put together as many job proposals as you want. That's not going to happen. It's not going to get through the Democrats.
Washington doesn't.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
Political leaders should be in the business of creating jobs.
I hope you saw the Wall Street Journal today, where double the amount of people are getting their checks from the government now instead of manufacturing private industry. That's a problem that we have to face. You know why all those Republicans or hardliners that got elected? They got elected by their constituents to cut government spending. And before that's done, they're not going to move on.
I don't recall that being much of the debates, during the
Obamacare and shrink spending. That was the Tea Party mission.
Yeah, I mean, that was all it was about.
Shrink government,
and the national debt,
less government, and undo Obamacare.
I mean, I think every American thinks right now what we need to be doing is hiring people, not firing people.
Yes, but we want the private sector hiring them, not the government.
If you do cuts,
get the government out of the way where
do not want to hire the people with their own money. Let private
final
companies
take
do it.
here. Half of these jobs that were created were the equivalent of Walmart greeter jobs. I think until we change our trade policies in a really significant way that make both Republicans and Democrats, frankly, cringe, other than a few progressives in Congress and Ron Paul, we're going to continue to have a problem, in my opinion. A new CNN poll shows support for the Tea Party at an all-time low, which is 32%. Yesterday, Fox News had to abandon its day-long breaking news, hot off the press coverage of a Tea Party rally here on Capitol Hill because pretty much nobody showed up. They said it was because of bad weather, but the Washington Nationals just down the street were having no such problem. They were playing ball, so the weather wasn't all that bad. So is the Tea Party in its death throes? How long till the tricorner hats are put up for good?
No, it's what you're witnessing is the maturation of the Tea Party. They're going from rallying and showing up at rallies, and this was poorly organized. It was put together at the last second. What you're seeing is they're becoming entrenched establishment figures to the good. I don't mean to the bad. They're not showing up at rallies anymore. They're working towards 2012. They're working towards ousting more big government Republicans and Democrats and becoming a fixture in the political process rather than an appendage as it was in 2010.
It seems to me that they're showing up in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Tea Party is a joke. You know, the original Tea Party was about
87 freshman Republicans in the House. That's not a joke.
It's not a joke.
The corruption, the original Tea Party, was about corruption and the British Crown and collusion with the East India Company. Weren't you talking about that the other night, Tom?
I get to your naming
So that was about collusion with the East India Company. And you know, this Tea Party right now is bought and paid for by corporate fat cats, and a lot of your members are waking up to that fact.
It will have a huge impact in the 2012 elections. It already had a huge impact in 2010. Calling it a joke is a waste of time because these members of Congress are doing exactly
the Tea Party is a waste of time.
No, calling it a joke is a waste of time because the members of Congress that are here doing what their constituents wanted.
Exactly.
They got elected by the Tea Party. They won or lost because of the Tea Party.
Well, look, the Tea Party, yeah, I would agree with you. The Tea Party took over the Republican Party, and they're now trying to take over the government.
If they're able to take over
well, look at what they're doing in the House. It's all a joke. They're not creating jobs. That's what every American wants their government doing right now. Create jobs.
The American people aren't
doing that.
The American people aren't as simple about the economy as you are.
Right.
The government shrinks, the private sector expands. No, I'm saying you don't understand it.
They want
I'm
to
saying
stop
you don't
funding
understand
an
it.
out-of-control budget. That's it. Get that under control.
And we have to say,
and they look at the current situation and they say, look, this government is doing zilch. The House is doing zilch to create jobs. All they're talking about is cutting, and that's going to cut 1 million jobs around the country.
No, it's not. That's
our economic
growth. Would you
growth.
stop quoting that fraudulent number?
Okay. He can quote any number he wants all night long.
You'll see, and it will become mainstream politics.
I think what's happening with the Tea Party is that people are waking up. I do a radio show 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, and it's blowing my mind how many calls I'm getting.
I host one
Tea Party people,
a radio show on 850 stations, Christian radio. These people are not who are supposed to be the Tea Party. 55-year-old women. They all are. They're not going to show up at a rally in Washington D.C.
But
they're at home in
2012.
They're at home in
waking up
Iowa.
to the fact that the Tea Party got bought and paid for by corporate
I don't think so.
We'll see. We'll see. A government shutdown could be just 1 week away. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid placed the blame of failed negotiations on the Tea Party, saying the infighting between the Tea Party and the rest of the Republican Party is keeping our negotiating partner from the negotiating table. Meanwhile, Democrats are pushing for a provision that would suspend congressional salaries in the event of a shutdown. So, if they're successful, will Republicans finally do everything they can to shut out the Tea Party and prevent a shutdown now that their bank accounts are online? Or are Republicans like small-time crook Darrell Issa too rich to care?
Yeah, they play with fire, you get burned, you know? And what the Republican Party did was they played with the fire of the Tea Party, who now have infiltrated the House and the Congress, and they've taken over to a large part. And, you know, we really need the Republican leaders, those that do still exist, to stand up to the extremists in their party that are rooting for a government shutdown that are cost us billions of dollars in our economy.
I love this blissful ignorance about the Tea Party. It's going to scorch you in 2012.
People do not want a
little bit of doubt.
And see, this is what you're...
No, a little bit itch.
We're talking about a debate over $30 billion of cuts, 30 or 60.
We owe $1.65 trillion short this year.
We're talking, why is that even a debate that Democrats have to have with us? Why can't they
Cowboy
say, yeah, we'll
poetry
move forward.
festival.
1.6 trillion deficit. We're going to move forward. We'll pass your $60 billion in cuts, and we'll move forward the next year. You got another election coming up. People don't like the cuts. They come back to power. Instead of that, they're bickering over $30 billion. And I think you've already seen from John Boehner.
What about the government shutdown?
John Boehner said, we know we only have a third control. We're going to have to do what we can. They're going to be in agreement. I don't think Republicans want to shut down.
How are the cuts working out for Governor Walker and his poll numbers? How are they doing? How are the voters like that?
You know what? He did exactly what his voters wanted, and it's tough when you do it. And you have to look at what happens long term.
And they don't want it anymore. They're going to recall him.
They ran off.
No, they're not.
These guys
and I think that's really putting Republican governors around the country going, oh, I'm not sure I want to step in that pile of
Kasich's
mess.
certainly backing off. Daniels is certainly backing off.
Daniels is backing off.
No,
because he's got a conscience.
One name, Chris Christie is one of those
Daniels
popular
doesn't have a conscience?
No, he's not backing off.
You just said Governor Daniels doesn't have a conscience. He's on your side.
No, you did.
Okay, my take on this is that, like Wisconsin, the Republicans are overplaying their hand, frankly, that they probably will shut down the government, and when they do, they're going to pay for it in
$1 trillion in stimulus is overplaying your hand. $60 billion in cuts is not.
We will see. We shall see. GE was the latest corporation to be outed for making billions in profits while paying absolutely no corporate taxes. In fact, they got a tax refund of $3.2 billion. The Republicans, for some reason, think corporate taxes are still too high. Check out what soon-to-be presidential candidate Newt Gingrich said about corporate tax dodgers.
In general, corporations who are making millions and millions in profit, but not contributing anything to the United States government. Do you think that's fair?
If they make millions and millions in profit, they probably employ thousands and thousands of people, and those thousands and thousands of people are contributing a lot to America. So I am for the maximum job creation in the United States, and I think that means lower taxes, not higher taxes. It means.
So the question is, how do you possibly cut corporate taxes to less than zero in America? And who are the real job creators?
Well, thank God there's at least one Republican talking about jobs there, but he's kind of got the wrong mentality about it. I mean, GE is creating a ton of jobs right now in China and India and around the world. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of jobs getting created here at home.
Obama's buddy.
And you know, if GE alone would pay their taxes, then we could restart job.
You know the full story of this, though. You know the full story of this, right? You know the full story. No one is saying GE is violating the law. They're following the laws that are on the books of the tax code. Why? The United States has the highest corporate tax in the developed world.
35%.
They are following the laws that they created, and we actually have the lowest tax collection. The second lowest tax collections in the developed world.
But if you want to bring any of those tax rates, and there have been deals that they have tried to work out, 5% to bring more in, they never go through. The Democrats have stood in the way of this. So guess what? Those companies are going to keep moving overseas so long as it's legal, and today it is.
Right. There's one Democrat that wants to do comprehensive corporate tax reform. It's Ron Wyden. That's it. He's the only one. The Republicans are on board for streamlining the tax code, lowering the rates, getting rid of a lot of the exemptions, which gets Obama's buddy down to 0%.
That in the 1950s, during the Republican Eisenhower administration, when you had a Republican Congress and you had a top tax rate of 91% on the very wealthy, and corporate income taxes constituted 31% of total government revenues, things were doing pretty good. But right now, corporate revenues are 6.6%.
How can you tell
those numbers held right up pretty much until Reagan.
At the world, we're competing now with China's and India's of the world, and places like Switzerland.
With governments of the world. You're right, because China subsidizes its industry.
And Switzerland, who
we should probably benefit businesses here in America.
I want to see Made in America again. Switzerland, yes. And you know how you get to see Made in America again?
You stop companies like this from shipping our jobs overseas.
You have to break unions, break through unions, and lower these corporate tax rates. finish off the unions in America
Labor unions
and
are
lower
the
the
foundation
tax.
of the middle class in
Oh,
America.
that's great.
The unions are the
most-
job creators.
There
No,
is
they're
no
not.
middle
They're the job
class left in
impediments.
America.
The
Look
unions
at
are
the
job
numbers.
impediments.
Look at the people who actually are working in manufacturing.
Do you like weekends?
Do you see the people
Do you like
working in
vacations?
manufacturing?
Do you like
wanna
an
be
8-hour workday?
You said you wanted the Made in the USA
Do you like
so
that?
bad.
Thank a union member, because
You
they
know what?
fought for it.
You understand.
They fought for
you
it.
understand.
They took their freedom.
You understand.
And
That's
now
why we're not
you're
competing
taking it
with the
away.
world.
And people like you are taking
Another
it
taking
away.
the economy.
And workers' rights are human rights,
No,
my friend.
that's okay. Communists of the world
Hey,
unite.
if you want to compete with them, you have to figure out a way to compete, and that's the only way we're going to be able to do it.
All right, I'll wrap this up by saying, in my opinion, the real job creators are the people who have money in their pockets that they spend, and that creates demand in the economy.
Thanks, Keynes.
And yes, thanks, Keynes. All the
Yes,
way
thank
back
you,
to
Keynes.
actually all the way back to Gilgamesh.
Never
6,000 years. It
Never
took.
worked.
Demand
Just
creates a job.
Okay, quick fire here. We got about a minute and a half left here. Republican Representative Sean Duffy from Wisconsin is in hot water this week for saying that he's struggling to pay his bills on his $174,000 annual taxpayer-funded salary. Take a look.
I guarantee you, most of you, I guarantee you more debt than all of you. With 6 kids, I still pay off my student loans. I still pay my mortgage. I drive a used minivan. If you think I'm living high in the hog, I got one paycheck. So
Right, one paycheck that's still 3 times higher than the average Wisconsin workers. So to help Duffy out with the bills, what can the people of Wisconsin do? Here's some multiple choice possibilities. A, teachers can put out a special table just for Duffy at their next bake sale where they're raising money for the schools that Walker took away. B, they can petition Congress or to give all members of Congress collective bargaining rights. Or C, they can give Duffy a role on a new reality TV show. I hear he's really good at it. It's called The Real Congress, the true story of 7 lawmakers picked to work on Capitol Hill and how their lives have changed. Find out what happens when lawmakers stop being bipartisan and start being corrupt.
Wow, America, it is really hard to be a congressman and only make $175,000 every year. Please send your top hats and send your French cuff shirts and send your monocles. Sean Duffy needs them. Representative Sean Duffy really needs your help today because he's not working a job that pays the American median income of about $35,000 to $50,000. You know, that's what's hard. That's what's hard.
Let's say,
To do it on that way.
The
to pay your
video,
bills on those
the video
wages.
left out one important thing, which is that he said he supported a cut in congressional salaries, and he has 6 kids and he has to live in 2 cities. Most people don't have to commute back and forth
You're right.
between 2
It's
states.
really hard to be a
I didn't say
congressman and
it's
make
really hard and so
$175,000
bad,
a year.
but why not have
really
the whole
hard.
quote which said, and I'm fine with slashing my pay?
And it's really
Why
hard.
did you leave that out?
And it's
He's
really-
okay with
I
slashing
didn't
it.
make
I don't think he was talking about slashing his pay to
congressional
$56,000 a year.
He said he said
We
he
hear
would
talking
slash his
Is it hard
pay.
to live on $175,000 a year? Is
Is it hard to live if I had to have 6 kids and go to 2 cities? I don't know. Maybe it is for Sean Duffy. I don't know what his bills are.
So you wouldn't take $175,000.
Seton, your thoughts on this?
Look, I'm really tired of the left scrutinizing everybody else's money. It's not your business. The only 2 people whose business it is the person that writes the check and the person who cashes it. This incessant whining about other people's money really is annoying.
And this congressman
this check is the government writing that check. Is this an effective expenditure of the government's revenue?
Okay, we got to wrap it up. Absolutely nothing is what I say is going to happen. Absolutely nothing, except that come the next election, they'll vote him and his minivan out of office. So we'll see. Jordan Sekelo, Ryan Clayton, Seton Motley, thank you all for being here.
Hey, thanks for having us, Tom.
Great talking with you.